Welcome to Disrupted Science, the occasional conversation between the authors of the upcoming book, How the Internet Disrupted Science. I'm Joy Moore here with my co-author, Kent Anderson, and we're recording this on Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. Hey, Kent.
Hey Joy,
How's it going?
we've had to move all of my band's outdoor shows around. We had one rained out like three-quarters of the way through the show because we had an uncovered outdoor stage at MGM Springfield, which like 1,300 people and big show and all this stuff, and we all just had to run and scramble and put tarps over everything. So it's
hmm
been a crazy weather summer for the practicing musician. But your pickleball's indoors, so you're lucky.
It is. It's the refuge, man. I had some ideas. They need to expand. They need to have an indoor pool. They need to have an indoor cafe. And it's like,
We product development people are just incurable, aren't we?
yeah, but it's like a day camp for older, flexible working and retired people. I mean, someone could make a fortune. But the but yesterday I tried a new thing. My friend and I, the ones we've been rejected from playing with other people because we're not good enough. Yeah, this is Mean Girls and pickleball. It's hard to take at this age. But we decided we better practice, and so we rented the ball machine.
Right,
So it's
right.
yeah, so it's an automatic ball machine, and of course, so it's $15 for an hour or $30 for a whole month, as much as you want to use it. So we
Wow.
said we'll go with that, and then we'll
Yeah.
split it. And if you go by yourself, you can do it. And of course, you
Mm,
have to have an app to program it, and it
okay.
has all these, and so it's got the Wi-Fi enabled, and you have to go on your phone and put in the settings. It looks like you're playing Wii, like Wii tennis and stuff,
Right.
but it's programming this machine. My reviews are not positive. They it we only had an hour, and that's why we got this machine.
hmm
And about 25% of the balls went into the net. And
What?
then, yes, and a good portion went out,
You had
you
one
know.
job, pickleball machine.
Exactly. And we tried different settings too. So that was the one thing. It's like it wasn't good. And then we had to go and pick up all the balls to put back in the machine. So this robot spews out balls, and then the humans have to go pick it up and put them back.
They don't have a pickleball Roomba?
No, that's the part that counts, right?
Yeah,
It's the
yeah, that's
picking
where
it up.
the ah, my goodness.
So anyway, of course, it reminded me of other things that are thrown out there willy-nilly and waiting for other people to pick them up.
So we're going to pivot to some of the post early first thing this week that we worked on together. It was our first co-authored post, actually,
Yeah.
about a really terrible preprint that got the full Maha Media Blitz treatment. So you're the one who discovered this little gem.
Yeah. Just when I said, what was it, last week, the week before, that the Gaslight journals weren't doing anything, because they weren't doing it on
Right.
their journal. They've been busy in other places. So on Friday, they posted this preprint on preprints.org, and immediately, co-published with different announcements on their different platforms, and the
Right.
post goes into all the details on
Substack
that.
and their Gaslight Journal and
Yeah.
YouTube interview and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. And
Nick Hulsher is our favorite busy bee.
yeah, the epidemiologist who his in his interview, I only watched the first few minutes of it.
Mm.
It was really painful, especially the opening. Be careful. Don't let your children be in the room if you watch the opening to that children's health defense video. It's like
Oh, I bet.
tombstones and,
Oh,
you know,
geez.
yeah, it's really bad. But he was talking about, oh, we've been doing so much research in what's his name, Brian Hutton, the guy who was
Right.
interviewing him, was like, you've published so many papers. He's like, I know, I've published so many papers. He just got his degree a couple years ago. That's not a good sign.
No, 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 no.
If you've
And again, it gets
published,
back to the the boast of the time is quantity, right?
yeah.
Every time I hear a quantity boast, my shields go up because it's like, I don't care about quantity. You have to do good stuff. and they're
Yeah.
doing bad stuff in bulk. So that was a
Mm-hmm.
great find, and I was really fun collaborating with you on that post. And I hope and people read it. So hopefully we're making a difference with that kind of quick intervention in the community that matters, which is the community of scientific publishers. And the
Mm-hmm.
more the more we get our arms around what could possibly go wrong, the better we're going to do. So good job.
Thanks, and good job to you because you added a few dimensions to it that I hadn't gotten to. So, like the peptides of it all.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, watching those ads flip through, it's just amazing how big the Maha world is. And the barriers to entry. I mean, really, you just need, a Squarespace account and you're ready to run and the ability to lie and deceive
Yeah.
people. And you can run, a foundation that isn't really a foundation or a company that isn't really a company, and you're just reselling garbage that you get off of, wherever,
Mm.
Timu or whatever. So yeah, it's not good stuff. But I want to pivot from your pickleball experience
Okay.
with a bad app and a not user-friendly interface to let's talk about AI.
Let's.
All right, so let's talk about Ed Zitron and his predictions of the AI winter, what he called the pale horseman of the apocalypse. And he's been doing this for years through his newsletter, and which is a great read, and I recommend to everybody. There'll be a link in the show notes. And then he did it a 3 episode spectacular on his podcasts called Better Offline. And it was really compelling to me. I mean, he has a great kind of, he's the kind of guy, British guy, you would just have a ball with in a pub because he just lets it all fly, and he's super smart and all of that. But some of the points that he made were really important business points, I think. And people tend to become infatuated with the tech and the hype and the gloss and the gleam, and they forget that there's a lot at stake here. So some of the things he rattled off: 5 companies make up 43% of NVIDIA's revenue, and NVIDIA is the chip maker that's profiting off of their picks and shovels selling to all of these companies that are trying to make a big run at generative AI, and that's 5 companies. So they have a very concentrated customer base, and their stock gains, NVIDIA's stock gains are account for 49% of total recent stock market gains. So you look at that risk profile where you have concentrated customer base in a company that is driving a lot of wealth realization and a lot of 401k funds and a lot of investment funds of scientific nonprofit publishers and others. And there's a big risk there. And that's one thing Zitron really points to. So, but you just listened
So,
to it, right? So,
yeah. So, but just to recap that, make sure
yeah,
that I'm getting this right. So we've got 5 companies that are purchasing the raw materials that are driving 49% of the stock market gains.
correct.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it's
So
in the raw materials.
yeah, the
Meaning
GPUs, right?
it's in the GPUs. Yeah.
Right,
No,
right.
I mean I knew that, but it wasn't until he spelled it out so clearly and with big numbers. And we see big numbers but not attached to any specific deliverables. And I think what really hit home is the only deliverable that is proven is the production of these and the sales of these chips and
Right.
the investments between these same 5 companies in these chips.
Yeah. And there are some sort of weird little Ponzi schemes going on where there's some of the companies are becoming in debt to NVIDIA and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But so Zitron's been going on about this for a long time. He's been a Cassandra about AI, and I think he's one things about Cassandra is that she was right, so
Mm-hmm.
you can't write it off. And but now other people are starting to agree with him because there was kind of heard from some people that oh yeah, he's been banging on about this forever, and you know
Yeah, and
maybe not. So
he does have a style. If you haven't listened to him or read him, he's got a gorgeous potty mouth that
yeah,
I appreciate because it's used appropriately. But that said, it's he dumbs it down.
Hmm.
He takes a lot of information, a lot of financial information. He's following the money, and he always ends with a question mark. And I've heard him say many times, and right, if I'm wrong, let me
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah, I'll be happy to eat my words. I mean, he's
yeah.
humble enough, but he trusts his reporting and he trusts his interpretation. And that's I can sympathize with that because I've been
Hmm.
naysaying on OA for a long time, and I keep saying if I'm wrong, show me the evidence that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But so people are starting to agree with him about the fact that NVIDIA may be facing some real problems going forward. So on just Monday this week, Seeking Alpha came out with a report that says that their NVIDIA's growth is slowing. Their valuation requires a more optimistic set of assumptions. The data center growth has decelerated, future growth remains less explosive, valuation is stretched, and the list downgraded his rating to hold from buy. And interestingly, last quarter, NVIDIA missed its revenue targets for the first time. And remember that Stargate project that
Hmm.
Trump and what's his face announced with the who's the Arabian financier that he bought into the office place. Man, all this stuff just goes swimming through my
You know
head.
what we're talking about. Yes.
You know what we're talking
I know who
about.
you're
Yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. I don't
Yeah.
know any of the right
But
words at the
anyhow,
moment.
the project's already been scaled back, and now it's just probably one small data center in Ohio.
Yeah.
So Sam Altman and what's the guy in Saudi Arabia who does the banking? But anyhow,
SoftBank.
SoftBank. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And he got ripped off a lot by that office rental scam. But anyhow, the people are trying to downplay or naysay Ed Zitron's perspective by saying that, oh yeah, Amazon was underwater for a long time, AWS was underwater for a long time. This is just a tech investment profile that these things, have to, you know, invest a lot in order to break even later. And he quite rightly points out that that doesn't square when you really look at the details, or even just not even at really deep details, just look at the picture, because the investments there were much lower and the
Hmm.
market uptake was obvious, right? And the path of profitability as a result was much clearer. So as Amazon was growing, they were selling books and then they were reinvesting the money so they could get into music or they could get into logistics or they could get into whatever.
Hmm.
So they had growing lines of business and they just kept reinvesting to expand. And then they became profitable and then they spun AWS. So you had this whole sequence of events that led to multiple profitable businesses. There's no such thing. And the expenses for GAI are so huge. I mean, that's one of the big points that Zitron really harps on. These expenses are just astronomical.
Hmm. Yeah, AWS was a thing. It had a reason for being, and it was proven before they took it to market.
Right.
It was to support their internal operations, and they invested so much. Wasn't it like one Christmas is, that they developed it to get through the holiday season or something like that?
Yeah. And then they noticed that they had
And
all
they're
this
like,
surplus
oh,
and they're
wait
like,
a
whoa, we
second.
could
What are
do
we going to
something with
do the
that.
rest of the year? Yeah, let's
Right.
let's share the
And that
cost.
that's been that was for a long time. That was Jeff Bezos's magic, is he would turn an
Hmm.
expense line into a business. And he did it with logistics in a big way. The reason you have all those Amazon trucks zipping around now and Amazon lockers and all that kind of stuff, and pretty soon more things coming from Amazon along those lines, is because they looked at their FedEx and UPS bills and they said, you know what? If we took it on ourselves,
Yeah.
guess what? We could have our own airplanes, we could have our own vans and do it
Hmm.
much more cheaply. So that's smart business.
And this is not the same. There is no
No,
business case for for generative AI at scale. I mean, there
no,
might be individual uses within logistics, within certain disciplines, but certainly not out in the consumer space to justify this expense. And this is what Ed's getting at, is like, where is
right.
the money coming from?
the line between AI and just machine learning, smart software builds. So for SaaS, creating SaaS GAI options, those are prohibitively expensive. And so a lot of companies that Cloud and others are raising their prices, very quickly because they're realizing that they can't cover the costs. The other thing he points out is there are no moats with this. Every generative AI system is using basically the same approach. They're
Mm.
doing the same thing. So if you go to Perplexity or ChatGPT or Cloud, you basically have the same prompting, the same kind of response engine, very little differentiation. And so if you don't have a moat, what kind of business do you actually have?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's in the broader picture, what Zitron thinks is coming is what he calls the AI winter, which is when investment in NVIDIA, their revenues start to constrict or fall. The companies that have been throwing all this money, it's a domino effect, and pretty soon, all the money dries up, all the heat goes out of the market, and he's not alone. There are others in Becker's book and elsewhere saying, these AI winters, this one could be really long and could also be a broader tech winter
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have any other games. And
They're running out of ideas, and
Mhm.
the idea for the last however many years has been a singular concept, which is generative AI. That's the
Right,
only idea. And so if they were to start having ideas that needed different solutions that didn't involve a giant mountain of GPUs, then they'd have a problem, which is
right,
where
right,
this is where they are. And
right.
so
Because they tried
it's the,
Web3, they tried
yeah.
crypto, and Web3 fizzled, and crypto turned into crime enabling, kind of
Hmm.
dark money operation, and this is going to run out of juice potentially.
Yeah, they got to make something out of this mountain of popsicle sticks.
The first time I saw a GPU, it was my son building a really swanky gaming computer for himself. And that's a great use of a GPU. And I think that's where a lot of NVIDIA's sales are going into kind of consumer gaming. But, this whole AI thing, everybody's catching on to, I think in the broader picture, they're catching on that this is a big hype cycle.
Hmm.
And that is probably the biggest threat because the AI community can't respond with something like, no, it isn't. Here, let me show you. You look at
Yeah.
Apple Intelligence. Oh, you can make custom emoticons. Well, that's big business.
Yeah.
This one, it can answer questions that you then have to validate. I went to for a checkup yesterday on knee thing that I have going on, and the doctor was using an AI assistant, and we got talking about it, and he said, "Yeah, I have to spend more time checking it and editing it afterwards than I used to just taking notes myself."
Yeah,
And but
my
it's been
vet has the
mandated.
same thing with the in
Yeah,
the vet, and he had two assistants and an AI assistant to tell me that my dog was fine. What?
it's crazy. So let's talk about we have it in so because we have convinced ourselves to be fast followers.
Mm.
We have AI in scientific publishing, and it's showing many of the same issues, but of course, we're making some of them our own, our own, and
Our
giving them our
own.
own flavor.
Yeah. Well, the the thing with AI and scholarly publishing is it is already in use in products that are on the market, that are in workflows, and so we can actually see them. We can hear about them a lot, but we can also see what they do. And when you look at, for example, last week, the preprint, and a lot of the scientific sleuths were weighing in. Elizabeth Fick did a critique of it, and then one of the AI paper screeners did their report and said, "Oh, look, we found all these things." You didn't need to burn through GPUs to find out that thing. So it's this, we have AI that can do that. You don't have AI that can prevent corrupt people from posting a preprint and starting a media blitz that goes all the way across the planet in 5 minutes. And
And gets
so,
ingested by another AI system and yeah, kneecaps the whole thing.
yeah. So it is pretty concerning that so much seems to be riding on the promise of AI for screening things to prevent things from happening or to find things after the fact, when it's the human involvement, the humans looking at things and the humans changing policies that would actually make a big difference.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about frontiers,
Mm-hmm.
if that's a good time to do that. So they have an AI system they call ARIA, ARIA.
Mm-hmm.
And they claim to have launched it in 2018, but they recently had to retract 122 articles and perhaps more due to a reviewer cartel and some other things going on there with conflicts of interest with their editors and reviewers and authors and all sorts of stuff. It was a broad and sophisticated network of about 35 authors that were potentially colluding over a very large number of journals and published papers. So they claim to have had an AI in effect in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But they then said that it did not check conflict of interest statements or reviewers or handling editors even into 2022. So what was it doing? Was my question.
I looked into this a little more carefully,
Hmm.
and this is a smoke and mirrors press release as far as I'm concerned, just to be perfectly blunt. So they put this press release up themselves because somebody from PubPeer reported that there was an author and a reviewer in a conflict of interest situation on a paper, and then they say they did their own investigations and found that there are about 35 people who were working together and they were colluding on these papers, and they caught it. So they're self-policing. Aren't they great? And then they, indicate that it could be up to 4,000 more papers, and that every publisher is affected. And, we've got the list
Right,
on
right.
everybody else. Aren't we great? We have, and we're coming clean that our AI robot didn't have the right feature turned on at the time. And end of story. This is not a story about AI.
No, no.
It's about invoking AI as a solution to very, very human problems. And when you look at their retraction statement, is if you compare it to, say, the science paper about arsenic that was retracted very famously recently after many, many, many years of
Mm-hmm.
debate and hand wringing and everything that went into it.
And the authors still don't agree with it.
And the authors still don't agree with it, and the authors are given the platform to disagree with it. Their statement just says we've uncovered a network of authors and editors who conducted peer review with undisclosed conflicts of interest and who have engaged in citation manipulation. The investigation identified this article as one for which the integrity of the peer review process has been undermined, resulting in the loss of confidence in the article's findings. The authors received a communication regarding the retraction and were given a chance to respond, with some discussion still ongoing. This exchange has been recorded by the publisher. The investigation was not able to determine whether all authors, editors, or reviewers were aware of or involved in the misconduct, but this misconduct was significant enough to determine that the scientific integrity of the article cannot be guaranteed. They say nothing about the content in the article. They say
Right,
nothing about the science. There's
right.
no indication to the reader or anybody who cited it what's wrong with this paper, other than they think there was some funny business going on between a couple of the people involved. And
Right.
it's not even spelled out. And
Yeah,
the
so it's one of those, it's another one of those guilt by association things.
this
Some of the authors were
we don't even know if there's anything wrong with this paper, or if the authors actually did anything wrong. They use the word colluded. You could
right,
also use the word collaboration. These authors
right.
work in a field a specific field within a specific academic environment spanning two countries. And when
Right.
you look at the authors individually and who they are and what their work is, it makes total sense that they would have been, selected to be on the same paper. But what it's really about is this publisher is not publishing according to the norms of traditional publishers.
Right.
They are an author services provider, and they are trying to play it both ways. So
Hmm.
they don't
Yeah.
have the appropriate checks, but then when somebody calls something out, they do a slapdash job of retracting things without going through all the motions and just saying, Cope said this is what we should do, and so we did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Tari,
I
I,
mean,
I took that in a different direction
no,
than
that's fine. I
AI.
think it, but no, but I think they are doing, so, the press release is an ad for their AI.
Yeah.
But their AI was not able to do anything even after 4 years of being in place. So just think about that for a second. The other thing to remember is that Henry Markram, who co-founded Frontiers, mismanaged the $1.3 billion Human Brain Project so badly that he was asked to step down after 2 years, and people who have done it since, looked back and said, I don't think anything came of this, so
No.
he's been in this field for a long time, and skimming off of it a little bit. And I think that, this is another sign that, they aren't sincere about it. The other thing that it reminds me of is, you remember the 11,000 Hindawi retractions?
Mm-hmm.
There were authors who just got a notice that your paper's been retracted. You have no means of appeal. Don't even try, because we're retracting all of them.
Yeah.
And the authors, I was actually in contact with some authors. They're like, our paper is good. This is a good. We stand behind it, but
Yeah.
we can't. We have no recourse because we're throwing it's the baby in the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is just sloppy publishing. The other thing that reminds me of the PLOS one, where a recent retraction where they said, we accepted it at one point, and then we heard some stuff about it. And what was the subject of that one? It was the recent one about plants.
Oh, the Media Lab paper?
Yeah, the Media Lab paper. So
Yeah.
they retracted that one.
Yeah,
So
they
it was
retracted it very close to when all the media blitz was going on.
under pressure, and then they did it in a way that was like, we blew it the first time, and then we asked some new people to look harder at it, and
Yeah.
now we're retracting it. And if you're saying to authors that you're paying us to do a good job of peer reviewing your paper, and that you can trust that when we publish it, we have done the work, and then later we come back and we're like, we actually didn't do the work, now we're doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
and do you get a refund?
Yeah. You should. I mean, due to an administrative error, we, lost all the money in your bank account. Sorry,
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
what?
So
Yeah, there was, and that reminds me of the case of the psycholinguists a
mm,
few months ago, where their papers, a handful of papers, were retracted a couple years after the fact because the publisher found some kind of anomaly in their peer review process that had nothing
right.
to do with the authors. It had
Or the
nothing to do
papers.
with the content of the papers. And these authors, I tell you what, remind me never to get into a war of words with a psycholinguist, because they came back full
I think that's
force. Like,
self-evident.
they're like, "Excuse you, how about
Yeah.
that 2 years of my career and the money we paid you?" So are
Yeah.
we? When your customer is your author and you're
And you
providing a
fall
service
short.
and
Yeah,
you
you should
fall
refund the
short,
money.
yeah. But then you also have these frontiers authors and the Hindawi ones. Their papers are retracted. It's unilateral, so they're not even able to make the case or represent
Right.
themselves.
Right, right, right.
I'm putting this in the malpractice category.
Yeah, and part of the malpractice was a claim that they had an AI system in effect and working to check for things like this when actually they didn't. So this is one of the things about what is AI in scientific publishing and what is it intended to do. And you have these different flavors of it. And one of them I'm going to talk about is Hum. And it was spun out of Silverchair when Thompson Group invested in them. And they have gone full AI crazy.
That's
So
their
they're
that's their reason for existence, right?
they
Yeah.
they they are totally like into in the bag with generative AI and all of that. So Dustin Smith, their CEO, and I swear, who's the guy who makes the movies like about dog shows and all of that?
Christopher Guest.
Christopher Guest. So this,
Yeah.
I think there's a Hum AI movie out there somewhere because Dustin Smith shows up and he's got a big mustache, and so on his LinkedIn, he's the chief stash officer, right?
Oh.
Because it's like, oh, that's so 2004, dude. Don't no, be serious. You're the CEO of a company, and then he publishes a manifesto, literally the most the Unabomber word of
Mhm.
of our lives, and one that has been every time it shows up, it scares me because I realize that this person is out of touch with reality. Mark Andreessen, now the chief stash officer of and it's a terrible manifesto, right? It basically says that we need a complete reimagining of how knowledge is created, distributed, and consumed. If you're working in scientific publishing, you're not distributing knowledge, you're distributing claims. Those
Mhm.
are those are different. And then he has a picture of Mark Andreessen, a screen grab from a video interview with Mark Andreessen. And I'm
Ooh.
just going to go to a little bit to the side here. So Mark Andreessen is a really problematic figure. And if you're marketing something, you should really be aware of how problematic a figure he is. So, as Becker said, and so Andreessen published a 2023 manifesto of his own where he came out, and it's just an embarrassment. You can read about it on the Geyser, you can find it there. It still is being quoted because it's so disturbing and strange. And for a billionaire to be claiming that academics are out of touch with reality, and when he in fact is, and he doesn't even realize it. And then what Becker in his recent book said is apparently expecting tech billionaires like Musk, Bezos, and Andreessen to pay attention to facts and make reasoned arguments for their beliefs is asking too much of them. Andreessen's manifesto certainly isn't running on logic, it's running on pure vibes.
Mhm.
Andreessen's also a major investor in Substack, which has pivoted into this sort of cyber libertarian free speech zone where they now are hosting major anti-vax and gaslight science newsletters, in addition to yesterday accidentally sending out neo-Nazi and white nationalist promotions to other substackers from the
Mhm.
white nationalists and Nazi blogs that they or newsletters that they support there. I thought they'd done away with those, so I was surprised to see that they're still up and running. And Andreessen's just invested more in them.
Mhm.
So if you want anti-science and the
Because they
Nazis,
get 10%
yeah, they
of
get 10% of anything. Nazi
it's
money is as
it's
good as
a
anything else.
good
It's Nazi
business.
gold. It's Nazi gold, whether it's
Yeah.
in Brazil or Germany. But so I would, for the chief stash officer, Dustin, I would say be careful about putting Mark Andreessen's picture into something that you're trying to gently promote to people.
If
Um,
you know what, he has the right to be an Andreessen fan, but you
yeah, but
know,
it comes with baggage, so
yeah.
that's important. And you pointed out nicely that not all manifestos are bad. Atul Gawande had a good
I
one.
mean, one of the key goals of their peer review software is to take the don't don't use your valuable human time to filling out checklists.
Hmm.
Let's take care of that for you so that you can use your human brains to do all the important things. And that goes right to the heart of a lot of the problems we have. And it reminded me of Atul Gawande's Checklist Manifesto book,
Hmm.
which, if you haven't read it, I really recommend it.
Great book. It's a
It's
great
very,
book.
yeah, you can read it in a, in a sitting. And he gives really good examples from surgery, airline pilots, and others of the premise is that even if you're an expert, or especially if you're an expert, being methodical and going through certain steps and checking things that seem to be second nature can have huge quality improvement effects. And when we're talking about checklists for manuscripts that are being submitted to, received by an editorial office, that's where you see who the authors are. That's where you look at it with your human eyes. That's where you see where they work. Have you seen them in this journal before? Who's funding them? That's the stuff that is going to show you more about the motivation for people publishing and to help you get ahead of things. There's no AI bot that's going to pick that out,
The groundwork for you for future work. Right?
And
So
it,
you can see things that we talked about this, one of the historians we both like it takes good care to look at source documents because you can see erasures, emendations, things like that. And I
Mhm,
remember seeing when people used to file, I still think they file scans sometimes of checklists they're asked to submit. You can
mhm,
see where maybe they cross something out or they erase something or they change something.
mhm,
AI is not going to say, ooh, better double check that because they actually kind of
mhm.
maybe fudged it, or they had a question about it. So yeah, lots of
But
human
the
stuff.
justification for all this is accepted as a given. I can hear
Right.
them saying now, but Joy, there's so many manuscripts. We have so many more manuscripts to deal with. And everything is under pressure, and we don't have enough people to do that. This is where all these manuscripts are coming from, people. They're coming from
Right.
things that have been
The vicious
published.
cycle.
So maybe spend a little bit more upfront having humans do the checklist, and we could slow some of that down. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Like we keep saying, slow down and fix things. Science is not a quantity game. It never has been, never will be. One of the other companies we came across in preparing for this episode was Consensus. They're a Boston-based AI startup. And when I came across the name, I was trying to recover something that I remembered, like I was trying to earlier with SoftBank. And it took me a hot minute, but I finally got there and I remembered they had an interview in the Boston Globe back when they launched, I think in 2021 or 2022. And it's two friends who played football together. And they became one of them worked at DraftKings, one of them worked somewhere else. But their quote, which I still treasure to this day, is we are technology professionals who secretly wish that we were scientists, but don't have the time or attention span to read scientific papers. To me, that says it all. That's you
it
know
just
what?
cracked me
It's
up. It was like, do they think that's how you become a scientist? By reading
Mhm.
papers? No.
Yeah, that's point A. Point B is if you
Like,
have the time or attention span to read scientific papers, how are you creating any kind of technology that can handle them?
but that's exactly the point. Nobody, not even scientists, have this time and attention span to read scientific papers, not because they're supposed to be reading them all, because they're not relevant. They only read the
Right.
ones that they need, and they know where to get the ones that they need.
Right. In their
It's,
specialty and from their top journals, and those are always buying for, yeah, it's
yeah.
so silly. So they don't even understand scientific cultures and they think, like we keep saying, science is not one thing. Science is many, many different things working in many, many unique ways. And
Mhm.
it's a process. It's not about outputs, it's about the process. So, but you also came across a review of a number of them in a library magazine called Katina after Katina's
Yeah.
Strouch.
Yeah, but before I get to that, I did play
Yeah.
around with consensus. I ran two queries and I found exactly what I thought I was going to find, which is
Mm,
this is of no use to anybody for anything. I'm sorry. It's another search engine with extra stuff in there that is further skewing and confusing things. They have a new layer of ratings, they have a new this and that.
right.
And
Bells and
with
whistles, right.
Bells and whistles are not good when you're trying to find something that you can trust that's in context. And so, good luck.
Yeah, that's our consensus.
But people will use it. And I'm a total realist. People are going to use it. They have a testimonial on their site from a teacher who said it's changed her life for the better, and now she can teach her students how to navigate peer-reviewed research. The takeaway on this is that just because it's peer-reviewed doesn't mean it's something that you should use. You have to know what you're looking for and why.
Right.
And this product certainly doesn't help you do that. There was a good review in Katina magazine, which is for librarians, and this was a comprehensive comparison of 3 of the major library-focused products that have AI out there. So there's Primo Research Assistant, Web of Science Research Assistant, and Scopus AI. And the library I use has both Primo and Scopus. So you've got, and so if it's like a nested Russian dolls situation within the library interface. And so you've got AI at many different levels. And so it's hard to tell where you're supposed to use it or even if they like each other. But it was a very technical review. But the takeaways that I got from it were just three main points that made me think, I don't understand why you're putting these things out in the world just yet. Reproducibility is a challenge across all 3 tools. So meaning you can run the same query multiple times and you're not getting the same results.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that gets back to Adam Becker's point that it's all a hallucination. Every answer is a hallucination.
right. They don't know anything. Like
Right.
when you asked it how many, about these states, it doesn't automatically know that how many states there are. Every single time they have to figure it out. And so
Yep.
reproducibility, we talk about a reproducibility crisis in science. Let's not add a unnecessary reproducibility problem in search. Other comments are a skilled human researcher or searcher would likely produce a more precise query. Yes. One thing they pointed out is they don't use full text, so they're not running across the full text of all the content that's in there. And I'm thinking that actually might be a good thing because the more full text is ingested into these LLMs, the more concepts they're going to pull out from that text that may not be relevant at the high level. And so
The
maybe
other thing it makes me think is it may be an expense issue, right?
it could, yeah.
Because again, one of the big points from Ed Zitron is that it's really expensive to scale up a full, and so if you limit the content set.
Hmm.
And I've talked to other AI developers, and they say that's one of the big considerations they have at the front end of the development path is, how much text, how much content are we going to have to be processing, and it's expensive. So I wonder if
Hmm.
it's partly that.
Yeah. And then the conclusion, the bottom line was of the 3, Scopus AI is probably the most mature and can be useful if approached with care by expert researchers. Why would you
Yeah,
put that in a library for students? Please. I,
it's true. One other thing about the full text that occurs to me is it might be copyright related too.
right. Hmm.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure it is. But
But
again, ugh.
But why? But to your point, you know, why have Scopus AI in there if it is one of those things that you have to have warning labels on, right? If you're
Because if you have told your shareholders that you have invested in AI, and then you need to have products in the market that show that you're doing it. You bought the GPUs, you gotta put them to use. You also have to train the model by having people use it. So this is a uncontrolled clinical trial within an academic setting is what these products are doing. So I can totally understand the from the business perspective, the justification to get them out there. Let's show our stakeholders that we're serious when we talk about AI, because that's going to give us, number go up, as Zitron would say, and we're going to learn from it. But I think it's a bit reckless. you bought the AI, you purchased it, you came through on your business plan saying you're making the investment. Why do you have to plug it in? Keep it in the box until you
Right,
know it
right.
works.
Right.
And
Well, and the
and
other maybe going back into the box, right? Because I think,
yeah.
what Adam Becker's book, what a lot of people are seeing, you have Maha and others with their hallucinated references. You have, it's just causing so much trouble. It's so expensive. There's no business model. It's not throwing off the kind of value that a normal product would at this point in its life cycle. It doesn't seem to have an addressable market because it doesn't have a real benefit that it's delivering. And so you wonder if I think Zitron's probably right, that there is a AI winter coming, and what are the publishers and companies like and Consensus what are they going to do? I mean, Facebook purchased Meta, which was an early AI company in the scientific publishing space, and they had outsized claims about what they were going to be able to deliver by processing all the scientific articles they had access to. They couldn't do it. Facebook couldn't get them to do it. So Facebook basically gently shut it down and assumed the brand is their Meta brand, literally and figuratively.
Mm.
So that's a well-trodden path. So, what happens? Is it going to be the next smart business move to be shuttering your AI system, to be constraining it, to be stop talking about it? I think
Yeah.
that's what might be coming.
Just take you just the not talking about it and using it where you can to improve the products is fantastic.
Yeah.
Just don't forget that your products, they've put these AI now with AI inside stickers on all of these legacy brands, all these existing products that have been proven and profitable for years. Just make them better however you need to.
Yeah, and stop participating in the AI hype bubble. I mean, I
Hmm.
bought a new computer and it's compatible with Apple Intelligence. That almost made me stop. I've had to shut off whatever that is in Microsoft. I've had to shut it off in Google search results
Hmm.
and other search results because it's so annoying. And again, we're always fighting with our computers. But I think the big business lesson in this, and one that hopefully we come out with a few of them, one is manage your expenses. You can overinvest in crazy stuff and ultimately, if you don't manage your expenses and you don't have a path to profitability, you're going to end up laying people off, closing down initiatives and things like that, and ultimately suffering setbacks in the long term.
Hmm.
Um, People are better than technology. You get more from people and from smart people who have experience and who care than you do from a technology that is, you know, basically doing, working as a tool. But if you set up that technology to compete with people and you
Hmm.
actually put them head to head, I think the technology should lose. And you have to, and so we're not investing in people enough.
We're prioritizing the assumed inevitability of having
Hmm.
to process multiple times more manuscripts. We're prioritizing that over human editorial office employees. It's
and
what
and
this all says.
editorial
And
judgment
an
and all of that.
editorial judgment. Yeah.
And it gets back to Adam Becker's book and his portrayal of this fantasy of the singularity and how OA and AI are part of the same fantasy world, right? If we have all this scientific content and we have all this smart, intelligent machine capability, we're going to have a singularity that will be smarter than every human mind combined. And that's total nonsense. You can't define what intelligence is. We don't even know how the mind works. These papers are not all good. Some of them are very
Hmm.
bad. And there's a lot of bias in them, and the bias comes through in the AI systems. There's tons of problems. We can talk about all those problems, but I think the bigger picture issue here is that at this point, given the other Zitron's three-part series, the other market indicators, I think we better start bracing for an AI pullback. So that's the message.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about in the podcast we did with Nikesh at Cactus
Right.
that was published last week.
Yeah, there will be a
And
link in the show notes to that. Yeah.
yeah, about, backing off a little bit, not following so closely. So far, our caution has week on week has proven to be wise. Maybe next week we'll be wrong and we will have missed the boat, but we're
Yeah,
still
and we'll
sticking
admit
with
it.
that. Yeah.
Again, that's another thing that, good humans have is the humility to admit when they're wrong. And, we're venturing out that we think this is probably a time to really think hard about your AI investments and positioning and what kind of relationships you're portraying yourself as having in your manifestos and elsewhere. Because if you're not hip to how the culture around AI is changing, the business around AI is changing, you're going to get caught out, and that would be too bad.
hmm And there's plenty of AI going on out there that we can't control. If you can control the AI within your organization, within your editorial operations, please do while you can.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to discoveries of the week.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
I had a fun discovery over the weekend. It was actually a good palate cleanser when I was looking at the McCullough shenanigans. So this is a YouTuber, and the name of the channel is Africa Reacts.
Oh,
And
right.
I found it because I had heard a song by Depeche Mode that came out when I was in high school. And do you ever have this where it's a song that you know by heart, but then you're like, for the first time thinking, what do these words mean? And what are the lyrics actually? So I was looking it up and I got to this YouTube channel, and it's this young woman in Africa. And like a lot of this is, a lot of React videos are out there, but she listens to the song for the first time and gives her impression and then tells what it's about. And what was extra wonderful about this is that she was watching a clip of Depeche Mode in 1983 on an Italian television station. And so it's an English band in Italy who didn't understand what the announcer was saying to them. And then she didn't understand any of them, but she was just absorbing it and then listening to the song and appreciating the music for the first time. And then she gave her interpretation of what the lyrics meant.
Wow.
So anyway, it was just a really cool little sidebar activity. I recommend checking her out. She's got a gorgeous smile. She's got a great attitude. She loves a bop and a and a
Yeah.
banger.
I will definitely put a link in the show notes. I know what you're talking about. That's awesome. That's terrific. So mine is a book that I came across accidentally. It was actually a Kindle recommendation called The Genius Myth by Helen Lewis. And it's a timely book because, she talks a lot about how genius has become a marketing tool and an industry, a cottage industry around certain individuals, and how it transmogrified from an idea like I had a moment of genius or I had a genius insight, where it was a passing just kind of inspiration or insight that anybody could have and anybody could own, but it was, something that you made you very happy when you thought, oh, that's a genius hack or that's a genius whatever, to becoming personified, tied to a single person, and then that person becomes a genius, right? And then they
hmm
benefit from the Matthew effect, and all things accrue to them, and you win a Nobel Prize, and you're good at everything, and you're smart at everything, and how these industries pop up around these people like Shakespeare and Einstein and Picasso, and they become brands and they become myths. And how Elon Musk is our current genius myth, despite all of the terrible, terrible things that he does and bad ideas he has and misbehaviors, people still say he's a genius. There must be something more to it. And it's like, no, his genius is actually swooping in at the right time and taking a lot of risk and having other really smart people do things well
That's
and benefiting
that's a
from that.
skill. That's a
Right.
skill.
Right,
Yeah.
but so it's a really interesting book called The Genius Myth by Helen Lewis. I recommend it. It's well written. It's timely, and so that was my discovery of the week. So
So that does that mean you can feel better about yourself if you're not a genius?
you just look for those genius moments you have. We all have them. And
Yeah.
again, it's this kind of, it reminded me that, we're like my mom always used to say, everybody has feet of clay. We're all human, we all have flaws, we all have strengths, we all can do great things. But just because you have flaws doesn't mean you're terrible. Just because you do great things doesn't mean you're a genius. And so just look for those moments of inspiration and treasure them, and then just be nice to other people. And because who knows, they have feet of clay too. So be
Mm-hmm.
forgiving. But
Yeah.
anyhow, so it's a good book. All right. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you like this. And thanks to our friends at Provoke the Truth for the music. And as always, let us know what you think. You can reach us at disruptedscience@gmail.com. Enjoy. It's your turn for the silly sign off of the week.
Is it? I think
Uh,
one of the themes of our conversation today, which is every week, and thinking about Depeche Mode, I've got to say, people are people.
that's true.
Focus on that.
Awesome. People are people. All right, everybody. Have a good have a good week.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.